Hello and welcome to Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. Sometimes it's not easy to overcome adversity on our own, and we might need a little help. That's where a life coach can come in. Joining us now is author, speaker, and certified transformational life coach, Susan D. Lorenzo. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Robin. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
You help people overcome challenges and adversity in their life, and you have a very interesting story that led you to do this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you. My journey into where I've ended up today really began about 16 years ago when I was told that I had invasive breast cancer, and I had to go through about 4 surgeries and chemotherapy, radiation, things you often hear about when you have loved ones with cancer. And just when I was coming out of treatment, I had just a little bit of hair on my head. It was like a few months outside of treatment. I confronted my mate at the time and really wanted to work on my marriage because I was so excited to get a clean bill of health. I was told I was cancer-free, and I wanted to have a great life. And so I brought this up to him one night, and he looked at me and nodded his head as if he understood and then said, actually, I think I need to live alone. And I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that at all. And I really was upset. Like, if I went up to the bathroom and yelled up at God, do you think I could just have a year off?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was a long journey out of that. But I learned a lot, and I learned that the universe wasn't kicking my butt. It was actually cleaning my house. And from there, I just gradually made a life I really loved, and I wanted to help other people see that you don't have to stay stuck in your story. We often can say, this is why I'm like this. This happened to me. And we think our life is over because of some really heartbreaking things that can happen to us. But I'm here to tell you that it's really actually a wake-up call. It can actually just be trying to get your attention and telling you, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. I'm just trying to get your attention. I can tell you that I knew I was in a bad marriage. I knew I wasn't taking care of myself. But I knew I didn't want to do anything about it either.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's the toughest thing to do, is to make a change. Even if you're not happy with where you are, the fear of the unknown sometimes is even worse.
It was. It was to me at that time, for sure. Yeah, so I love helping people who are coming out of life-altering adversities and just showing them that it wasn't for nothing, and that there is some real insight and wisdom and personal growth that comes out of a dark situation. If you're willing to look back, you need a little time between what happened and giving you a little space to heal and assess. And then things start bubbling up. Like, I saw that I really had terrible self-esteem prior to this cancer diagnosis most of my life. And I never really saw that. I just always put myself last. And I was in codependent relationships. I didn't even know the word codependent at that time. So, yeah, it's you learn a lot, and then you leverage what you've learned to create something better.
So give us an example of how you work with people, what you do with them, and some of the situations that you help them cope with.
Yeah, I will. Now, a lot of my clients have come out of divorce, and they are sometimes still very hurt and angry, and there's a lot of emotion to process. But in order to move ahead with our lives, there's certain things that can't come with us. And one of them I brought up was low self-esteem. Another one is resentment. Excuse me. Another one is resentment. You can't, there's a great saying, resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. You just can't hold on to that and expect to move forward with anger and hurt.
Yes, and those emotions control you, and that means whoever has harmed you or done something to you still has control over you. And that is not a good place to be.
No, it's not, Robin. You got it. And so it's kind of like cleaning out the closet. Yes, first you want to start having a vision. You start to notice what lights you up. What would you love if I waved a magic wand? What would you tell me I'm waving into your life here, you know? So you get clear on the things you would love, and you don't say, what do I think I can get, you know, in the realms of what I can see. You want to go beyond what you can see and go from your heart. What would I love? And then take those baby steps to get there. And that's where accountability comes in. That's where that cleaning out the closet phase comes in, where we got to get rid of some things that are holding you back. And then you have accountability. I'm going to say, hey, when are you going to do that? Did you do that?
Yeah, that's good.
And so you have, I am a partner in believing. That's it. And definitely have the tools and skills that help people advance.
Walk us through what you do with the client when somebody comes to you. You do, of course, as we're all doing everything online now, what you had done before.
Yes. So we do an assessment, and we find, I'll ask the client, okay, what is it that brought you here today? What's not working for you? And then they'll give me a rundown. And then we'll go on to, okay, that's the magic wand part of the deal, which is, what would it look like if you could have anything you wanted? What would your life look like? And then we'll talk about what holds us back, the things we call paradigms, and making sure they can see how those negative paradigms are working in their lives. And that it takes, you see a gap from where you are to where you want to be. And then what's in between that is what I call the bridge that we have to cross over together as a client and a coach. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's wonderful to see the big ahas and the little ahas when people make their, we record our calls and they get to listen to their own voice again, saying the most amazing things. They're realizing things. It's fine that I say things, and those are great. There's some real tools in there they can keep and listen to. But it's when you hear yourself say things like, wow, I never realized how hard I was on myself. I never realized the amount of resentment I was carrying. And so it's listening to them and then watching them take those baby steps. Like I have a young client who is now, she's someone who went through a very tough time in high school. And how awesome of her at such a young age to hire a life coach.
Yeah.
And so she now is starting her own podcast and helping other people in the mental health field that she once had to go through herself. So she knows it from, just like I do. I feel that I'm right there with that client, and that I've been in the trenches of adversity. Yeah. And so this young client is doing something very similar at a very young age. She realizes what's possible for her life. She doesn't have to wait for permission. She doesn't have to wait for a 4-year college degree. She's doing it, and she took the steps to make it possible.
That is so great to hear that you're inspiring somebody like that. What are some of the tools you use? I know you help them with possibly journaling or meditation. What are some of the things you recommend?
That's actually very good that you said that, yes. And visualization is another huge one. It's that idea of putting on the person. Actually, I'll give one for your listeners right now that's really simple. I love this one. And that is, if you were to close your eyes and even have yourself standing. I think there's something about standing that's very powerful. So you're standing, you have your eyes closed, and you imagine in front of you is the woman or man you are 5 years from now, right? Your person you are 5 years from now is in front of you. And you imagine that person. What are they doing? What do they look like? How is their health? Are they in a great relationship? And then when you have a really clear image of that person, you take a step into them. You walk into that person that you've imagined, and it's amazing the feeling, the energy that comes over you as you make that connection that, hey, that is me, that's the best vision I have for me, and I'm stepping into it, and then remember that. You can take that throughout your day when you're at the sink washing the dishes, when you're, taking a shower, when you're walking out the door. How are you walking out the door? Are you walking out the door with the energy of that person you're seeing? And then what can you do to start taking little steps that way? It could be sending an email to find out about something. I have a client who wants to live in Europe. I said, start finding out what it's like to live in Europe. Where do you want to live? Start doing the work. Do the legwork. And it makes it more real than that someday feeling.
Talk to us about the book you're writing. I know it's on this basically same vein here.
Yes, the book is called Pulling the Gems from Adversity. And it's where I take the reader through 5 sections. The first section being, what do you do when you're in the middle of an adversity? I provide tools and mindsets that support you when really it's a feeling of helplessness often when you're right in the middle of that. So I like to support that and let people know even at that time, there's some mental work and spiritual work that can be done to help you get through it. And then the second section is what I call a kind glance backwards. So you've come a little bit away. In my case, I healed from cancer. I could start to see, hey, I really treated myself badly. I, just always put myself last. And so you get those little gems going. You start making some notes and noticing. And then the third section I call Creating Life Anew. And that's where I take them through a lot of what I do with my clients, which is to develop a vision and start to take steps towards it and inhabit the person. Like I kind of went into with that visualization of stepping into the person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then keeping little steps, staying accountable. And then the fourth one, not everything can come with you, like resentment, like low self-esteem, like those things. So I kind of go through a bit of a list of things that really need to be dealt with in order to really move forward. And then finally, the fifth section, advance boldly. If you've done this work all the way up until now, you can really go for it.
Do you find when you're working with your clients that many of these folks say, I never even thought of this. I'm just living my life day by day, but I never really had a big picture of things. Do you hear that?
Yes, and think about it, Robin. More people spend time, not this year or the past year, right, planning a vacation than they do their own life.
That is true.
They put more time into planning a trip than the quality of their own life. And it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's conditioning. We tend to do what we were brought up to do, or in that same kind of social programming, schooling, whatever it is. It's very, what's the word? It's kind of like sedative.
Yeah.
You just kind of go along, hypnotic, I guess. And
you get up, you go to work, you take care of your kids, you do this, and it's sort of being on that, I always call it a gerbil wheel. That's how I put it. You're on this gerbil wheel, and you just keep on the wheel, and you never really think about it, and time starts to go by in your life, and sometimes, either adversity or you haven't quite accomplished what you set out to accomplish in the beginning, you get off track, and it can be awakening when you finally sit down and take a look at all of this and really focus on what you want out of life.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's one of those things, once you have somebody in your life who's going for it, or you see somebody doing something that you would love to do, and then you go, must be nice for them, thinking that you don't have that. And he has no more than you do, right? And that we kind of make it other persons that can have this great life, but like we drew the short straw.
Right.
And that's not true at all. It does take a decision, and I think it takes bravery because it does feel scary. It is outside the comfort zone. And once you get past it, think about anything else you've done in your life, whether you play a sport, you had to learn a foreign language, play the piano. There were some times you weren't doing it so great.
Yes.
And yet you had to keep going because you had the end in mind. It had a goal in mind. And I think we need to do that further on into our adult lives to make that the way we achieve things.
I love looking at it that way. It's such a positive way of viewing life. Now, if someone wants to work with you, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, yeah, easy. So you can hop on over to my website, which is SusanDeLorenzo.com, SusanDeLorenzo, or you can email me at Susan@SusanDeLorenzo.com. And I want to mention too, Robin, for anybody who just wants to find out what it's like to work with me or even in general with life coaching, I do offer an introductory session that I call the Launchpad session, where we do just what we talked about a little bit earlier. It's finding out what isn't working, what would you love.
That is great. And I will put a link to your website in the show notes so people can find that easily. But
Great.
I think this is a wonderful opportunity for people to stop, take a look at their lives, reevaluate things. I like the idea of your launch meeting because that's a good way to summarize everything and see where you want to go in your life. So many people need that right now. I really do appreciate your joining me today, Susan.
It was such a pleasure, Robin. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, too. Susan D. Lorenzo, Certified Transformational Life Coach. I will have her information in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today for Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. We'll see you next time.